My husband thought he could steal $23,000 from my retirement fund to pay his 28-year-old girlfriend. He was convinced his tech-challenged wife would never find out. He was completely wrong. If you're over 55 and think your husband might be hiding something, this story might inspire you. But before I tell you what I did, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the incredible stories we share here. Have you subscribed yet? Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let me tell you how it all began. The notification popped up at exactly 7:23 a.m., right as I was pouring Tom's coffee into his favorite Arizona Cardinals mug, the same mug I had given him for his 50th birthday, back when I thought we had forever ahead of us. After 32 years of marriage, I knew his morning routine by heart. Coffee first, then the Arizona Republic sports section, followed by what he called his educational videos on our shared iPad. That Tuesday morning started like any other, with the familiar sounds of our Scottsdale neighborhood waking up and the desert sun already promising another scorching day. I was Linda Patterson, 56 years old, recently retired from the Phoenix Public Library after 3 decades of quiet, methodical service to my community. My husband Tom had always joked that I was technologically challenged, and honestly, I had worn that label like a badge of honor, preferring my books and garden to the digital chaos that seemed to consume everyone else. Life was simple, predictable, and comfortable in our little corner of paradise, a sanctuary I had spent decades building and protecting. That sense of security was about to be obliterated in the most devastating way possible, leaving me questioning everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and the man sleeping beside me every night. "Good morning, handsome. Can't wait for our video call tonight. I'm already wet thinking about your strong hands all over my naked body." The explicit message appeared on the iPad screen in a bright pink text bubble, complete with fire emojis and a photo attachment that made my stomach lurch. A young woman in lingerie, posed in a way that left nothing to the imagination. The sender was listed as Amber, with a profile picture of a blonde woman who couldn't have been older than 35, all perfect curves and pouty lips that belonged in a magazine. I stood there, coffee pot trembling in my hand, watching my husband's face drain of all color as he frantically lunged for the iPad, his movements so desperate and panicked that he knocked over the sugar bowl. His hands were shaking, actually shaking, as he stammered something about spam messages and these damn hackers getting worse every day. The lie rolled off his tongue with such practiced ease that I realized, with a sickening certainty, this wasn't the first time he had to cover his tracks. After 32 years of what I believed was a solid, loving marriage built on trust and shared dreams, I was staring at evidence that my husband was living a completely different life, one filled with secrets and betrayals that made a mockery of everything we had built together. The coffee pot slipped from my numb fingers, shattering on our Italian tile floor and sending scalding liquid splashing across my bare ankles. The physical pain a welcome distraction from the emotional devastation crushing my chest. Tom jumped up so quickly he knocked over his chair, the wooden legs scraping against the tile with a sound like fingernails on a chalkboard, rushing to help clean up the mess while simultaneously trying to hide the iPad behind his back like a guilty teenager caught with stolen candy. "Honey, are you okay? Let me get some towels," he said, his voice pitched higher than normal, cracking on the word, honey, like it physically hurt him to say it. I watched him move around our kitchen with jerky, frantic movements, all nervous energy and obvious panic, and I realized I was seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time in years. This was the same man who had held my hand through my mother's brutal cancer diagnosis, who had promised to love me through better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. The same man who still called me his girl when we were out with friends, who brought me yellow roses every Friday for the past 15 years because he remembered they were my favorite. Looking at his flustered, guilty face, I felt something inside my chest crack like ice under pressure, a fissure that would never fully heal. I realized I had 2 choices in that moment: confront him immediately and probably watch him lie his way out of it with more elaborate stories, or take a step back and figure out just how deep this rabbit hole of deception actually went. Something in my librarian's analytical mind kicked into gear. The same methodical, patient thinking that had helped me solve countless research mysteries for patrons over the years. The same systematic approach that had made me excellent at uncovering hidden information and connecting seemingly unrelated dots. "I'm fine, Tom. Just clumsy this morning," I heard myself say, surprised by how calm and steady my voice sounded when everything inside me was screaming and falling apart. Inside, my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird beating its wings against a cage. But years of dealing with difficult library patrons, upset children, and demanding researchers had taught me how to maintain perfect composure under pressure. How to smile and nod while my mind raced through possibilities and solutions. I knelt down to pick up the larger pieces of ceramic, using the time to think and to study him, watching as he clutched that iPad like it contained nuclear launch codes or state secrets. His eyes kept darting toward the hallway that led to his home office, and I could practically see the wheels turning in his head as he calculated his next move. When I looked up at him from the floor, surrounded by broken pieces of our morning routine, I saw guilt written all over his weathered face like graffiti on a wall, in the tight lines around his eyes, the way his mouth twitched when he tried to smile, the manner in which he couldn't quite meet my gaze for more than a few seconds. This wasn't just a random message or a case of mistaken identity. This was something he had been actively participating in, nurturing, hiding from me with deliberate calculation. The woman in the profile picture looked young enough to be our daughter, and the explicit familiarity in her message suggested an ongoing relationship that had moved far beyond casual flirtation into something much more intimate and threatening to our marriage. My mind started cataloging all the little changes I had noticed over the past few months, details that hadn't seemed significant at the time but now formed a damning pattern of deception. The secretive phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room, always explained away as work stuff or catching up with the guys. His sudden interest in learning about social media and staying current with technology, which had seemed sweet and endearing when he asked for my help setting up Facebook and Instagram accounts. The mysterious charges on our credit card statements that he always had reasonable explanations for, business lunches, gas station purchases, that new subscription service we talked about. The way he had started taking longer showers, paying more attention to his appearance, even buying new cologne without any special occasion to justify it. His increased absences in the evenings, claiming he needed to take walks for his health, or catch up on emails in his office with the door closed. Each memory felt like another piece of broken ceramic cutting into my hands, sharp and painful and impossible to ignore now that I was really looking at them. How long had this been going on? How many lies had I believed? How many times had I smiled and nodded supportively while my husband was systematically betraying our marriage vows and making a fool of me? He disappeared into his office with the iPad, claiming he needed to check his emails and delete all this spam before his morning walk, his voice still shaky and unconvincing. I stayed in the kitchen, mechanically cleaning up coffee and broken ceramic while my world quietly imploded around me, each piece I picked up feeling symbolic of everything that was breaking in my life. Through our window, I could see Mrs. Rodriguez next door watering her prize-winning roses, completely oblivious to the domestic drama unfolding 30 feet away, and I envied her simple morning routine and uncomplicated life. Everything looked exactly the same as it had 20 minutes earlier. The same granite countertops Tom and I had picked out together during our kitchen renovation 5 years ago. The same family photos covering our refrigerator documenting decades of shared memories. The same wedding china we had received 32 years ago still displayed in our hutch like a shrine to promises that apparently meant nothing. But nothing would ever be the same again. Not really, because the foundation of trust that had supported our entire relationship had just cracked beyond repair. I had spent my entire adult life building what I thought was a partnership, a team, a love story that would last until death do us part. growing old together in the house we had bought with our combined dreams and savings. Now I was standing in the ruins of that illusion, holding pieces of broken ceramic that somehow seemed like a perfect metaphor for my broken trust, my shattered faith, my demolished sense of security and belonging. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal itself, devastating as that was. It was the realization that I had been completely blind to it, that I had been living in a fool's paradise while my husband was expertly managing a double life right under my nose. How long had this been going on? How many lies had I believed? How many times had I smiled and nodded while my husband was secretly planning a future that didn't include me? How many nights had I lain beside him, trusting and content, while he was probably thinking about another woman? I heard the front door close as Tom left for his walk, something he had started doing religiously about 6 months ago, and the timing suddenly seemed significant rather than coincidental. 6 months of daily walks that took him away from the house for exactly 1 hour, always with his phone, always returning in a suspiciously good mood. I walked to our living room window and watched him power walk down Camelback Road, probably heading to wherever he could make his secret phone calls without his naive wife overhearing his sweet words to another woman. The morning sun was already blazing in the Arizona sky, promising another day over 100 degrees, and I stood there in my bathrobe feeling like I was burning from the inside out. I was a 56-year-old woman who suddenly felt ancient and foolish, watching the man I had loved for most of my adult life hurry away to continue his elaborate deception. The numbness was starting to wear off, replaced by a burning sensation in my chest that felt like swallowed lava, hot and destructive and impossible to ignore. But as I watched Tom disappear around the corner, I felt something else beginning to stir beneath the pain and humiliation. A cold, calculating anger that would soon transform me into someone neither of us had ever seen before. By the time Tom returned from his walk 90 minutes later, longer than usual, which now seemed ominous, I had already begun my investigation, driven by a desperate need to understand the full scope of his betrayal. While he was gone, I had done something I never thought I would do in 32 years of marriage. I had systematically violated his privacy, searching through his belongings like a detective gathering evidence for a criminal case. I started with the most obvious place, his home office, a converted bedroom that had always been his sanctuary, his man cave, where I was rarely invited and never welcomed for long. The desktop computer was password protected, but I knew Tom well enough to guess that he would use something simple and memorable rather than anything truly secure. After trying our anniversary date, his birthday, and our home address, I hit the jackpot with Cardinals 2024, his beloved football team combined with the current year. So predictable it was almost insulting. The computer opened like a digital Pandora's box, revealing a secret world I never knew existed, a carefully compartmentalized life that ran parallel to our marriage without ever touching it. His browser history told a story of late-night activities that made my stomach turn. Dating websites with names like Seeking Arrangement and Sugar Daddy Meet, video chat services I had never heard of, and forums dedicated to men seeking discreet relationships with younger women. But it was his email account that really shattered what remained of my heart into pieces so small they could never be reassembled. Dozens of messages from Amber, each one more intimate and explicit than the last, going back not weeks or months, but 8 full months of systematic deception. 8 months of "good morning, handsome," and a "wish you were here," and "can't wait to feel your strong hands on my body again." 8 months of my husband living a completely separate emotional life while I slept peacefully beside him, trusting and oblivious to the elaborate fiction he was maintaining. The messages revealed a relationship that had progressed far beyond casual flirtation into something that felt like genuine emotional intimacy, complete with inside jokes, shared fantasies, and future plans that made my blood run cold. They talked about meeting in person, about Tom leaving his boring old wife for a real woman who appreciated him, about starting fresh in a new city where no one knew their story. Reading those exchanges felt like watching my marriage die in real time, Each message another nail in the coffin of everything I had believed about our relationship. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. The way they laughed about my age, my appearance, my supposed inability to satisfy him the way a younger woman could. I found myself reading and rereading certain messages, each time hoping I had misunderstood, that somehow the words would rearrange themselves into something less devastating. But there was no ambiguity, no room for misinterpretation. My husband was in love with another woman and planning to destroy our life together to be with her. The financial records were somehow even worse than the emotional betrayal, because they revealed not just unfaithfulness but actual theft on a scale that took my breath away. I found a secret credit card account that Tom had opened in January, one that wasn't connected to our usual bank statements or financial tracking systems, hidden so carefully that I might never have discovered it under normal circumstances. The charges painted a picture of systematic financial deception that left me physically nauseated. Hundreds of dollars every month to something called Lovely Live Video Services, premium subscriptions to multiple dating and video chat websites, online flower deliveries to an address in Denver I didn't recognize, gift cards purchased electronically and sent to Amber's email address. When I added up all the charges over the past 8 months, the total came to $23,476.38. I would remember that exact figure for the rest of my life. $23,000 of our retirement money, money I had saved working endless overtime shifts at the library, staying late to help with special events and weekend programs, sacrificing my free time so we could have a comfortable future together. Money we had planned to use for travel and home improvements, for helping our children and grandchildren, for the golden years we had talked about for decades. He had stolen not just my trust and my marriage, but my financial security and my dreams for our future, spending it all on expensive gifts and services for a woman young enough to be our daughter. I sat in his office chair, staring at numbers on a screen that represented years of my life's work, and felt something fundamental die inside my chest. Not just love or trust, but my sense of who I was and what my life had meant. It wasn't just the money itself, devastating as that loss was. It was what it represented. Every dollar he had spent on her was a dollar he had stolen from our shared future, from the life we had built together through decades of compromise and sacrifice. I thought about all the times I had suggested we splurge on a vacation or a nice dinner out, only to have Tom insist we needed to be more careful with our spending, more responsible about saving for retirement. Meanwhile, he was secretly hemorrhaging money on another woman, funding a fantasy life that had nothing to do with the reality we supposedly shared. The hypocrisy was staggering, but what hurt even more was the realization that while I had been working extra hours to build our nest egg, he had been systematically looting it to finance his betrayal. I found myself studying the transaction dates, trying to remember what I had been doing when each charge was made. Had I been at work, earnestly helping library patrons while my husband was at home buying lingerie for his girlfriend? Had I been making dinner, planning our future, while he was upstairs purchasing expensive gifts for another woman? The photos were the final assault on my sanity and self-respect. Hidden in a folder buried deep in his computer files, labeled innocuously as personal documents, I found dozens of images that made me physically sick to my stomach. Pictures Tom had taken of himself in our bedroom, our bathroom, even in our kitchen. Intimate photos meant for another woman's eyes, taken in the home we had built together with our combined dreams and decades of shared labor. But what made it exponentially worse was realizing that some of the backgrounds in these photos showed items I recognized intimately. The quilt my mother had hand-stitched for us as a wedding present, the antique lamp we had bought together during our romantic weekend in Sedona for our 10th anniversary, the family pictures on his nightstand showing our children and grandchildren. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was literally using our shared life, our most sacred and private spaces, as a backdrop for his infidelity. Every photo felt like another violation, another desecration of not just our marriage vows, but our entire history together, turning our home into a stage set for his performance with another woman. I found myself studying the timestamps on the files, cross-referencing them with my own memories, trying to piece together exactly when these violations had occurred. Had I been downstairs reading a book while he was upstairs taking pornographic selfies for his girlfriend? Had I been at the grocery store, buying food for our family dinners, while he was turning our bedroom into his personal photo studio for another woman's pleasure? Then I found the videos, and whatever remained of my world collapsed completely. Tom had been video chatting with this woman regularly, recording their conversations like some kind of perverted trophy collection, documenting his betrayal with the methodical precision of an archivist. I couldn't bring myself to watch more than a few agonizing minutes, but what I saw was enough to destroy any remaining hope I might have harbored for our marriage or my own dignity. My husband of 32 years, the man who claimed he could barely figure out how to use our smart TV remote, was revealed as an expert in video technology when it came to satisfying his sexual fantasies with another woman. He knew how to adjust lighting and camera angles, how to record and save and organize his digital infidelity with professional-level competence. All those times he had asked me to help him with basic computer tasks, playing the role of the befuddled older man who couldn't understand modern technology, he had been performing an elaborate charade while secretly mastering the digital tools he needed to carry on his affair. The level of deception was staggering in its complexity and duration. Not only was he cheating, but he had been systematically lying about his technical abilities for months, making me feel stupid and outdated while he was using sophisticated digital tools to betray our marriage. I felt like I had been living with a complete stranger, a man who was apparently capable of Oscar-worthy performances and elaborate long-term deception that would have impressed professional con artists. When I heard his key in the front door, my heart nearly exploded with panic, and I quickly closed all the files and shut down the computer with shaking hands, my entire body flooding with adrenaline as I realized how close I had come to being caught in my investigation. I rushed back to the kitchen and pretended to be loading the dishwasher, trying to look normal and domestic while my entire understanding of my life had just been obliterated beyond recognition. Tom walked in looking relaxed and satisfied. That post-exercise glow that I now realized had absolutely nothing to do with physical fitness and everything to do with his secret phone conversations with his girlfriend. Great walk this morning. Really got the blood pumping, he said with disgusting cheerfulness, kissing my cheek like he had done thousands of times before, his lips feeling like ice against my skin. I had to force myself not to recoil from his touch, not to scream at him about what I had discovered, not to confront him with the evidence of his systematic betrayal of everything we had built together. This was the same man who had just spent over an hour talking to his girlfriend, probably planning their next video session or discussing how soon he could abandon his old, boring wife for his exciting new life with a woman half his age. The casual way he lied to my face, the practiced ease with which he slipped back into the role of loving husband, showed me that this deception had become second nature to him, as comfortable and automatic as breathing. He wasn't struggling with guilt or wrestling with his conscience about what he was doing to our marriage. He was thoroughly comfortable with this double life, experienced at maintaining it, maybe even enjoying the thrill of successfully deceiving the woman who trusted him completely. In that moment, watching him pour orange juice and settle down with his newspaper like this was just another normal Tuesday in our normal marriage, I realized that the man I had loved for 32 years had either never existed at all, or had been slowly replaced by this stranger who was capable of systematic, long-term betrayal without a trace of visible remorse. That afternoon, while Tom was at his part-time job at Henderson's Toyota, a position he had claimed was just to stay active and social, but which I now suspected provided perfect cover for his daytime communications with Amber, I drove to the Barnes & Noble in Phoenix with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. Instead of heading to my usual haunts in the fiction or gardening sections, I made a beeline for the technology and computer science shelves, purchasing books that would have seemed completely out of character just days earlier. A Digital Surveillance for Beginners, Computer Forensics and Investigation, Cybersecurity Fundamentals, and Electronic Evidence and Digital Investigation. Titles that felt foreign in my hands but necessary for my survival. The young clerk who rang up my purchases looked genuinely confused when this gray-haired woman in a floral blouse requested books on cybersecurity and digital forensics, rather than the latest romance novel or cookbook. "Is this for your grandson?" she asked with that patronizing sweetness that people use when they assume older women are technologically helpless. "No," I replied with a smile that probably looked more predatory than friendly. "It's for me. I'm expanding my skill set." I spent the drive home thinking about how systematically I had been underestimated my entire life, by colleagues who saw a quiet librarian, by family members who viewed me as the traditional wife and homemaker, and most critically, by Tom, who had built his entire deception on the assumption that his technologically challenged wife would never be smart enough or motivated enough to uncover his secrets. My 30 years as a research librarian had taught me that information is power, and that the key to solving any mystery lies in knowing how to ask the right questions and where to look for answers. I had spent decades helping patrons navigate complex databases, locate obscure documents, and piece together research projects from scattered sources, skills that I now realized were perfectly applicable to investigating my husband's secret life. I set up my command center in our guest bedroom, the room Tom never entered because he complained it was too girly, with its floral wallpaper and antique furniture inherited from my grandmother. The irony that his distaste for feminine decor was about to provide me with the perfect cover for my surveillance operation wasn't lost on me. I spread my new books across the desk and began studying with the intensity of a graduate student preparing for comprehensive exams, approaching the technology not as some intimidating foreign language, but as just another research challenge that could be solved through systematic study and methodical application. Chapter after chapter on digital surveillance techniques, software that could monitor computer activity invisibly, methods for recovering deleted files and tracking online behavior. It all began to make perfect sense when I approached it with the same analytical mindset I had used to master library science databases and archival systems. I discovered that much of this technology was readily available to regular consumers, originally designed for parents monitoring their children's online activity or employers tracking worker productivity, which meant I wouldn't need advanced technical skills or illegal methods to document Tom's betrayal. By the end of my first week of intensive study, I had transformed from a woman who genuinely needed help programming the coffee maker to someone who could install invisible monitoring software and cover her digital tracks like a professional investigator. The transformation felt almost supernatural, like I had discovered hidden abilities that had been dormant my entire life, waiting for the right motivation to emerge. Every evening, while Tom was downstairs watching his sports programs and probably texting with Amber, I was upstairs learning how to become a digital detective, mastering surveillance techniques that would have seemed like science fiction just days earlier. I ordered specialized equipment online using a credit card Tom didn't monitor, having packages delivered to the library where my former colleagues accepted deliveries for me without asking uncomfortable questions, trusting that their retired friend had her reasons. Small cameras disguised as everyday objects like phone chargers and picture frames, software that could be installed remotely without leaving traces, devices that could mirror smartphone activity to my computer in real time. I was building an arsenal of surveillance tools that would have impressed law enforcement professionals. The quiet librarian who had supposedly needed help operating Netflix was systematically becoming someone who could conduct sophisticated digital investigations that would expose every secret her lying husband thought he was keeping. But the real breakthrough came when I realized that Tom's arrogance and underestimation of me was actually my greatest advantage in this battle. For months, he had been carelessly leaving digital breadcrumbs everywhere, never bothering to truly secure his devices or accounts because he was absolutely certain his technologically challenged wife could never follow the trail. He used simple passwords, saved login information on shared devices, and left browser histories intact because he genuinely believed I was too stupid and too trusting to ever investigate his activities. Installing monitoring software was almost embarrassingly easy because Tom's cybersecurity practices were virtually non-existent. He had grown complacent in his deception, confident that his boring librarian wife would never develop the skills or motivation to expose him. Within days, I had keyloggers recording every password he typed, screen capture software documenting every website he visited, and even a tiny camera positioned to record his evening computer time when he thought I was safely occupied with my books downstairs. The technology worked flawlessly, sending encrypted reports to an email account I had created specifically for this investigation, building a comprehensive digital dossier of my husband's betrayal that grew more damning with each passing day. However, my transformation wasn't without its challenges and close calls that tested both my newfound technical skills and my ability to maintain the pretense of normalcy. 3 days into my surveillance operation, Tom's computer crashed unexpectedly, and he asked me to help him figure out what was wrong, a request that sent my heart racing with panic as I realized my monitoring software might have caused the problem. Drawing on my librarian training in troubleshooting technical issues, I managed to fix the problem while secretly reinstalling my surveillance tools, all while playing the role of the helpful but bumbling wife who was just trying to click the right buttons. Another terrifying moment came when Tom caught me reading one of my cybersecurity books, forcing me to quickly improvise a story about helping a friend whose email had been hacked. "You're so sweet to help people with their computer problems," he said with that patronizing tone he used whenever I attempted anything technical, never suspecting that his sweet, helpful wife was actually studying advanced surveillance techniques to destroy his secret life. The close calls only strengthened my resolve and sharpened my operational security. I learned to be more careful about covering my tracks, more strategic about timing my research, and more convincing in my performance as the harmless, technologically inept housewife. The first time I watched one of Tom's video calls with Amber in real time, seeing my husband perform for another woman in our bedroom while I sat in the guest room monitoring his betrayal, I had to run to the bathroom and vomit until my stomach was empty. But by the 3rd or 4th session, I was able to watch with cold, analytical detachment, taking detailed notes and building my case with the same methodical precision I had once applied to complex research projects. This wasn't my husband anymore. This was evidence in an investigation that would determine the trajectory of the rest of my life. I documented everything: timestamps, conversation topics, financial transactions, promises made, lies told. The recordings revealed layers of deception that were even more sophisticated than I had initially suspected. Tom wasn't just having a simple affair, but was systematically planning to abandon our marriage while maximizing his financial gain and minimizing his losses. I watched him lie to Amber about our financial situation, claiming he had more money than he actually did, promising her luxuries and experiences that he could only provide by stealing from our joint accounts. I listened to him mock not just my appearance and age, but my intelligence, my interests, my entire identity, reducing 32 years of marriage to cruel jokes shared with his much younger girlfriend. After 2 weeks of intensive surveillance, I realized I needed professional legal advice to ensure that my evidence would be admissible and my interests protected in the divorce that was now inevitable. I contacted Catherine Mills, a divorce attorney whose reputation for aggressive asset protection in complex marital cases was legendary throughout the Phoenix legal community. I had first learned about Catherine from an article in the Arizona Republic about how women over 50 were increasingly being victimized by financial infidelity. And something about her quoted comments suggested she would understand both the technical aspects of my situation and the emotional devastation I was experiencing. When I showed her just a small sample of the evidence I had collected, the financial records, the communication logs, the video documentation, her eyes lit up with the predatory satisfaction of a lawyer who knew she was looking at an open and shut case. "Mrs. Patterson," she said, leaning back in her leather chair with a smile that reminded me of a shark sensing blood in the water. "By the time we're finished with this case, your husband is going to wish he had just bought a Ferrari and gotten a tattoo like a normal midlife crisis." Her confidence was infectious, and for the first time since discovering Tom's betrayal, I felt like I might not just survive this ordeal, but actually emerge victorious. The quiet librarian who had been systematically underestimated and betrayed was about to become something much more dangerous. A woman with evidence, legal representation, and nothing left to lose. 3 weeks into my surveillance operation, I had accumulated a digital treasure trove of evidence that could destroy Tom's life multiple times over. 47 recorded video calls with explicit content, hundreds of text messages detailing their relationship and his plans to leave me, comprehensive financial records documenting $23,000 in stolen marital assets, and even photographs he had sent, proving he was using our home as a backdrop for his infidelity. But evidence alone wasn't sufficient for the kind of justice I was planning. I needed a strategy that would not only protect my legal interests, but deliver the devastating public humiliation that Tom deserved for his systematic betrayal of our marriage. Catherine Mills had explained that while Arizona was a no-fault divorce state, meaning adultery wouldn't automatically give me an advantage in court, Tom's financial fraud and attempts to hide marital assets would definitely work strongly in my favor. More importantly, she had helped me understand how to protect myself going forward, quietly moving half of our joint savings into an account in only my name, documenting every asset we owned with photographs and appraisals, and preparing paperwork that would freeze Tom's access to our remaining joint accounts the moment I was ready to file. Tom had been so focused on his secret girlfriend and his elaborate deception that he had no idea his supposedly helpless wife was systematically dismantling his financial security with the precision of a demolition expert. Every day he came home and performed his loving husband routine. I was one step closer to destroying the comfortable life he thought he was so cleverly maintaining while planning his escape. But I wanted more than just a favorable divorce settlement and financial compensation for his theft. I wanted Tom to experience the same soul-crushing humiliation, the same devastating sense of betrayal, the same public exposure that I had endured when I discovered his secret life. A simple divorce, even one that left him financially devastated, wouldn't accomplish that level of poetic justice. He needed to feel the shame of having his most intimate secrets revealed to the people whose opinions and respect mattered most to him. That's when inspiration struck during one of our regular Sunday dinners, as I watched Tom charm his children and grandchildren with stories about our wonderful marriage and his plans for our upcoming anniversary celebration. He had mentioned wanting to do something special for our 32nd anniversary in 2 weeks, perhaps a small family gathering to mark the milestone, and I realized he was unknowingly handing me the perfect opportunity for his public destruction. "That's a wonderful idea," I told him with genuine enthusiasm that he completely misinterpreted. "I'd love to invite everyone who matters to us, your children and their families, my sister and her husband, your brother and sister-in-law, even your parents if they're feeling up to travel from their assisted living facility." Tom was absolutely delighted by my suggestion, probably thinking it would provide perfect cover for his ongoing deception, and perhaps even give him opportunities to sneak away for video calls with Amber. He had no idea he was helping me plan the most devastating evening of his entire life. The planning consumed every spare moment I had for those 2 weeks, requiring me to maintain my surveillance operations while simultaneously orchestrating what would essentially be Tom's public execution. I arranged for catering from Marconi's, our favorite Italian restaurant where we had celebrated every major milestone of our marriage, ordered flowers from the same florist who had done our wedding 32 years earlier, and even hired a professional photographer to document our special evening. Though the documentation I had in mind was quite different from what Tom expected. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was using the same attention to detail and organizational skills that had made me an excellent librarian to plan my husband's complete social destruction. Every element was designed to maximize his humiliation, while maintaining the facade of a loving anniversary celebration until the perfect moment for revelation. I spent hours in the guest bedroom editing together a video presentation that would serve as the centerpiece of the evening's entertainment, a masterpiece of psychological warfare disguised as a sentimental slideshow. It began innocently enough with photographs from our early years together. Our wedding day when we both looked so young and hopeful. Our first home when we thought we were building something permanent. Family vacations and holiday celebrations that documented what I had believed was a genuine partnership built on love and trust. But hidden seamlessly within those innocent family memories were screenshots of Tom's most incriminating text messages, bank statements showing his systematic theft of our retirement savings, and most devastatingly, carefully edited clips from his video calls with Amber that revealed him in all his pathetic, lying glory. I had spent weeks learning video editing software, approaching it with the same methodical patience I had once applied to creating research presentations for library patrons. But this project was far more personal and infinitely more important than anything I had ever produced. The transition from cherished memories to devastating evidence was so gradual and expertly crafted that viewers wouldn't realize what they were seeing until it was too late to look away or stop the presentation. By the time Tom understood what was happening, his entire family would have witnessed him promising another woman our money, our home, our future, while mocking his wife's appearance and intelligence for the entertainment of his much younger girlfriend. The technical precision required for this project had pushed my newly acquired skills to their limits, but the result was a weapon of mass destruction aimed directly at Tom's reputation and social standing. I also spent those 2 weeks creating multiple backup copies of every piece of evidence, preparing for Tom's inevitable attempts to destroy or discredit the proof of his betrayal once he realized he had been caught. Multiple encrypted USB drives containing the complete digital record of his affair, backup copies stored in my safety deposit box at 3 different banks, additional copies given to Catherine for legal safekeeping, and even a simple website where I uploaded everything with password protection that could be accessed if needed. Tom might try to claim the evidence had been fabricated or manipulated, but the sheer volume and consistency of the documentation across multiple platforms and formats would make such claims laughably transparent. The quiet librarian who supposedly couldn't figure out Netflix had become a master of digital forensics and evidence preservation, creating a comprehensive archive that would follow him for the rest of his life. This wasn't just about exposing his current affair. I was building a permanent record of his capacity for deception that would protect any future women from falling victim to his manipulative charm. Every video call, every financial transaction, every lie he had told was preserved in multiple formats and locations, creating an inescapable digital prison of his own making. The night before our anniversary dinner, as I listened to Tom's final recorded video call with Amber where he expressed his excitement about their upcoming new life together, once he resolved the Linda situation, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me like a blanket. Hearing him refer to our 32-year marriage as a situation that needed to be resolved was the final confirmation I needed that I was completely justified in what I was about to do to him. This man felt no remorse, harbored no guilt, entertained no second thoughts about destroying our life together for his selfish fantasies. He was planning to dispose of me like an outdated appliance that no longer served his purposes. The cold calculation in his voice as he discussed exit strategies and financial manipulations was genuinely chilling, revealing a level of premeditation that transformed his betrayal from a moment of weakness into a systematic campaign of emotional and financial abuse. He had timelines for leaving me, detailed plans for minimizing my financial compensation in the divorce, even strategies for turning our mutual friends against me by portraying our marriage as loveless and dysfunctional. He thought he was so intelligent, so strategic, so far ahead of his naive wife who would never see the betrayal coming until it was too late to protect herself. Tomorrow evening, he was going to discover that the woman he had systematically underestimated for 32 years had spent the past month becoming someone he had never imagined possible. A digital predator who had been documenting his every secret, planning his complete destruction, and preparing to serve him justice with a level of precision that would make his own deception look amateur by comparison. As I lay in bed beside him that final night, listening to him sleep peacefully while probably dreaming about his fantasy future with Amber, I felt no guilt about what I was about to do. only a deep satisfaction that justice was finally within reach. Tomorrow, Tom would wake up thinking he was still successfully managing his elaborate double life, still convinced that his boring wife remained blissfully unaware of his sophisticated deception. He would spend the day looking forward to our anniversary celebration, probably planning how to sneak away early for his usual evening video session with his girlfriend, never suspecting that this would be the last normal day of his life. He had no idea that his technologically challenged librarian wife had spent the past month transforming into someone he had never encountered before. Someone strategic, methodical, and utterly committed to his complete destruction. The hunt that had begun with an accidental text message was about to reach its devastating conclusion, and Tom was going to learn that sometimes the prey is actually the predator wearing a very convincing disguise. Tomorrow night, 32 years of his lies would finally catch up with him, delivered with the same systematic precision he had used to destroy our marriage, but with far more devastating and permanent consequences than anything he had ever inflicted on me. The morning of our 32nd anniversary arrived with the kind of crystalline desert clarity that made Scottsdale famous, and Tom woke up in an unusually jubilant mood that made my stomach churn with anticipation. He hummed while shaving, using the expensive cologne he had started wearing for his video calls with Amber, complimented my dress with genuine enthusiasm, and even helped me arrange the flowers without being asked. Behaviors that would have seemed loving and attentive if I hadn't known they were motivated by his excitement about his secret plans, rather than any affection for me. "I'm so excited about tonight, honey," he told me over breakfast, his words carrying more truth than he realized. 32 years is really something to celebrate. His cheerfulness felt almost obscene given what I knew about his actual plans for our future. But I played along with Oscar-worthy performance, matching his enthusiasm while internally preparing for the most important evening of my life. We spent the day transforming our house into the perfect setting for his public execution, and Tom's excitement was genuinely infectious as he moved furniture, set up extra chairs, and tested the sound system for my special presentation. He loved being the center of attention at family gatherings and had no idea that tonight he would definitely be the focus of everyone's attention. Just not in the way he expected. His phone buzzed constantly throughout the day with messages that I knew were from Amber, probably asking about their usual evening video session and expressing excitement about his promised timeline for leaving his wife. And I watched him check his messages with barely concealed anticipation for what he thought would be another perfect evening of successful deception. By 6 o'clock, 22 people had gathered in our dining room and living area. Tom's 3 children from his first marriage, 5 grandchildren ranging in age from 8 to 16, his elderly parents who had made the difficult trip from their assisted living facility specifically for this celebration, his brother and sister-in-law who had driven down from Flagstaff, my sister's family from Tempe, and several close friends who had been part of our lives for decades. The house looked absolutely perfect, transformed by flowers, candles, and our finest china into a setting worthy of a magazine spread about successful marriages and family celebrations. Everyone was relaxed and genuinely happy, sharing stories about family milestones and catching up on news while I served the catered dinner from Marconi's, the same restaurant where Tom had proposed to me 33 years ago, back when I believed his promises meant something. Tom was absolutely in his element, holding court at the head of our dining room table, telling jokes and reminiscing about our early years together with the kind of charming storytelling that had first attracted me to him decades ago. Several people commented on how wonderful it was to see a couple still so genuinely happy and connected after 32 years of marriage, and I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing at the cruel irony of their observations. If they only knew that while Tom was playing the devoted husband and family patriarch, he was probably calculating how much longer he needed to maintain this performance before he could excuse himself for his nightly video call with his 28-year-old girlfriend. After dessert, a tiramisu from Marconi's that had been our wedding cake flavor, I stood up and gently tapped my wine glass with a silver spoon, the same spoon from our wedding silver that I had polished that morning with special care. "Thank you all for being here tonight to help Tom and me celebrate 32 years of marriage," I began, looking around the table at faces filled with genuine love and respect for what they believed was a model couple who had successfully navigated the challenges of long-term marriage. And I've prepared a very special video presentation that chronicles our entire journey together, from our wedding day right up until this very moment. I think you'll find it extremely revealing about the kind of man Tom really is. Tom's face lit up with genuine pleasure and anticipation, probably expecting to be gently embarrassed by old photos and sentimental memories that would reinforce his image as a devoted husband and family man. He reached over and squeezed my hand affectionately, whispering, "This is so thoughtful of you, Linda. You always know how to make occasions special." Those were the last kind words he would ever speak to me, and I savored them for the few seconds before I completely destroyed his life. I had spent weeks perfecting this presentation, and it represented the culmination of everything I had learned about digital technology, video editing, and psychological warfare. It was going to be the performance of my lifetime, and Tom was about to become an unwilling star in his own destruction. I dimmed the lights with theatrical precision and activated our 75-inch television, positioned strategically so that everyone in both the dining room and living area could see the screen clearly. The presentation began exactly as everyone expected, our wedding photos with Tom looking handsome and sincere in his rented tuxedo, early pictures from our honeymoon in Hawaii when we were both young and hopeful about our future together, shots of us building our first home and hosting our first holidays as a married couple. Tom squeezed my hand again and smiled broadly as our family and friends made appreciative comments about how young and happy we looked, how much our children had grown, how wonderful it was to see our love story documented so beautifully. The transition happened so gradually and expertly that at first, the audience didn't realize what they were seeing as family photos slowly gave way to screenshots of text messages. Vacation pictures were replaced by bank statements showing thousands of dollars in unauthorized charges, and wedding memories transformed into irrefutable evidence of systematic financial theft and emotional betrayal. I watched the faces around our table as comprehension slowly dawned, expressions shifting from nostalgic happiness to confusion to dawning horror as they began to understand what they were witnessing. Tom's elderly mother put her hand to her mouth in shock, her wedding ring catching the light from the television screen. His eldest son stood up so quickly he knocked over his chair, the wooden leg scraping against our hardwood floor with a sound like fingernails on a chalkboard. His teenage granddaughter started crying, and his brother just stared at the screen in stunned disbelief. But the real devastation began when the video calls started playing, filling our living room with the sight and sound of my husband performing for another woman in our bedroom, using our bed and our most intimate space as a stage for his betrayal. There was Tom, the man who had just been telling everyone how blessed he felt to have such a wonderful marriage, promising another woman our money, our home, our entire future while mocking his wife's appearance, age, and intelligence for the entertainment of someone young enough to be his daughter. The audio was crystal clear thanks to the professional sound system Tom had enthusiastically helped me set up earlier that day. His own voice telling Amber how much he loved her, how he couldn't wait to leave his pathetic old wife for their exciting new life together, how much he enjoyed spending Linda's retirement money on gifts for his real woman. The room erupted in gasps of horror, shocked whispers, and the sound of chairs scraping as people half stood in their discomfort. But I kept my eyes focused on Tom's face as he watched his secret life being exposed to everyone who mattered to him. For a moment that seemed to last forever, he just sat there in complete paralysis, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, terror, and finally, pure panic as he realized what was happening and understood that his entire social and family world was collapsing in real time. Then he lunged for the remote control with desperate, clumsy movements, shouting, "Linda, stop this. Turn it off. This isn't what it looks like." But I had hidden all the cables and control devices, and there was absolutely no way to stop what everyone was seeing and hearing. His own recorded voice continued to fill the room, promising his girlfriend access to assets that belonged to his wife, laughing about how easy it was to deceive his stupid, trusting, spouse, planning their romantic future with money stolen from our shared retirement accounts. When the presentation finally ended after what felt like hours, but was actually precisely 18 minutes of carefully edited devastation, the room was completely silent except for the sound of his mother weeping quietly into her cloth napkin and the uncomfortable shuffling of people who had just witnessed something they could never unsee. Tom looked around the table at faces filled with disgust, disappointment, and genuine revulsion, then turned to me with an expression I had never seen before. Pure, unadulterated terror mixed with the dawning realization that his life as he knew it was completely finished. "Tom, sweetheart," I said with poisonous sweetness, reaching under my chair to retrieve the thick manila envelope I had hidden there earlier. "I have one final anniversary gift for you, something I think you'll find very appropriate for this special occasion." I handed him the divorce papers with a smile that probably looked more like a predator baring its teeth. The legal documents that Catherine Mills had prepared with military precision to ensure maximum financial devastation for my cheating husband. "Sign here, darling, right next to the section that shows exactly how much spousal support you'll be paying me from your retirement fund. Please do it while everyone's still watching. I want our family and friends to witness this historic moment." His hands were shaking so violently he could barely hold the pen, but he signed every single page without even attempting to read the terms, knowing instinctively that he had no leverage, no options, no way to negotiate when faced with such overwhelming evidence of his systematic betrayal. As he scrawled his signature with trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone and made one final call that I had been anticipating for weeks. "Catherine, it's Linda. Execute the financial lockdown immediately." Within minutes, every joint account we shared was frozen solid. Every credit card in his name was permanently canceled, and every asset was legally protected under court order. Tom's financial life was as destroyed as his reputation, and there was absolutely nothing he could do to prevent or reverse any of it. 6 months later, Tom is living in a cramped studio apartment on the wrong side of Phoenix, working part-time at a discount electronics store at age 60, because no decent dealership will hire a man whose personal life became local entertainment, struggling to pay court-ordered spousal support that will continue until one of us dies. Amber vanished the moment she discovered his true financial situation, apparently moving on to her next sugar daddy victim without so much as a goodbye text, leaving Tom with nothing but debt, shame, and the crushing realization that he destroyed 32 years of marriage for a fantasy that evaporated the instant it was exposed to reality. His relationship with his children and grandchildren remains severely damaged. His parents barely speak to him anymore, and his standing in our social circle is completely annihilated. People still talk about Tom Patterson's spectacular meltdown and at dinner parties, using his story as a cautionary tale about midlife crisis and the dangers of social media infidelity. The divorce was finalized entirely in my favor, with Tom required to pay substantial ongoing spousal support and full compensation for his theft of marital assets, plus legal fees that bankrupted him completely. As for me, I'm living the happiest, most authentic life I've experienced in decades, having discovered capabilities and strengths I never knew I possessed when properly motivated by betrayal and righteous anger. I completed advanced certification in cybersecurity and now run a successful consulting business helping other women protect themselves from digital infidelity, teaching them the same surveillance techniques I used to destroy my cheating husband. I've lost 35 pounds, learned ballroom dancing, joined a book club, and yes, I'm dating. A retired FBI cybercrime investigator named Michael, who appreciates a woman with technical skills and investigative instincts, and who thinks my story of digital revenge is the most impressive amateur investigation he's ever encountered. Tom recently attempted to contact me through his brother, claiming he made a terrible mistake and desperately wants to reconcile. But I've moved far beyond any possibility of forgiveness or second chances. That naive, trusting woman died the morning she discovered his betrayal, replaced by someone much stronger, smarter, and completely immune to his manipulative charm. I learned that I'm capable of strategic thinking, technological mastery, and ruthless execution when defending myself against people who underestimate my intelligence and determination. Most importantly, I proved that the best revenge isn't getting mad or getting even. It's getting everything, systematically and permanently, while teaching your enemy that they never really knew who they were dealing with in the first place. If Linda's story inspired you, if it showed you that you're stronger than you think, I need you to do something right now. Click the subscribe button and join this community. Your subscription encourages us to continue finding and sharing these incredible stories. Click the like button if Linda's revenge gave you the satisfaction you needed today. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Linda's situation? Have you ever had to become someone completely different to protect yourself? I read every comment and love hearing your stories. Speaking of incredible stories, you need to watch what's next. A mother finds her 24-year-old daughter crying outside her own birthday party while her wealthy in-laws celebrate inside without her. What this mother said next brought down Arizona's most powerful family and exposed decades of corruption. Trust me, if you thought Linda's revenge was satisfying, the next story will leave you speechless. Click the video. You'll love it.